Ladies and gentlemen, it is, according to my watch, 7:01. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Hardy?
Here.
Vice Chair
Here.
Provenzano?
Here.
Member Sciutto?
Here.
Member Oliver?
Here.
And Secretary Bentley, I'm here. All
All
present.
right, we have a full house tonight. Approval of the minutes from June 16th. You received the minutes electronically, everyone, on June 24th. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no additions, deletions, or corrections, I make a motion we approve the meeting minutes from June 16th, 2020. And this is Member Sciutto talking.
Member Provenzano, seconds.
Member Sciutto made the motion. Mr. Provenzano seconded it. Mr. Bentley, call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Hardy?
Here. Yes.
Vice Chairman Tuckfield?
Yes.
Member Provenzano?
Yes.
Member Sciutto?
Yes.
Member Oliver?
Yes.
Member Bentley, yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Anyone want to make a motion for the agenda for tonight? We had we had one add-on, which was Sonny's Pool and More, and you received that earlier in the month. So that should all be part of the new agenda. So anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield. If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve the, I'm going to call it the amended agenda that we received earlier this month as presented.
I'll support that, Mrs. Member Sciutto.
Member Tuckfield made a motion to approve the amended agenda with Mr. Sciutto supporting it. Mr. Bentley, call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Vice President, or Vice Chairman Tuckfield? Sorry.
Yes.
Member Provenzano?
Yes.
Member Sciutto?
Yes.
Member Oliver?
Yes.
Secretary Bentley, yes. Chairman Hardy?
Yes, the motion passes. And just so everybody knows, we do the roll call only because this is audio only, and it makes we're trying to make sure that the community understands if it's a yes or if it's a no and who voted.
Gotcha.
Very good.
Proposed amendment to zoning ordinance for conditional rezoning. Mr. Box.
I'm actually going to hand it over to Dave here. Dave Skirdo is going to talk about this.
Mr. Skirdo?
Yes. Can you hear me okay with my mask on?
You're doing great. Thank you.
Okay, great. The conditional rezoning was brought in front of the commission for discussion, I believe, in the beginning of March this year. What it is, it's an option allowed by the State Planning Act to resolve development matters on difficult sites. These matters that typically go to consent judgments can be handled internally through a conditional rezoning. In essence, what that is, it's an ordinance amendment. It's an ordinance amendment whereby an owner of a property can voluntarily propose a land use, and along with that land use, he can propose development or design conditions to minimize any effects on surrounding property. And as an amendment, it goes, every case comes in front of the Planning Commission for review and recommendation. and onto the township board for a decision. We have a number of sites, folks come in and their only option is consent judgment, and this gives another option.
Okay, so basically
happy
what
to
you're
answer any
saying, it
questions.
allows the township to be more flexible.
More flexible, allows the township, somebody to bring in design considerations. You can factor that in terms of the township, as opposed to letting the court system decide what goes into place and how it's designed.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions before I open it up for the public comments? Or the public
Yeah,
hearing, I'm sorry.
This Commissioner Oliver, Mr. Skirtle, is there any examples recently that you could bring to our attention that we could kind of relate how we use this done?
The most relevant that comes to mind right now is all the frontage on Hayes, was it between 22 and 23, you know, where Randazzo's is, and a lot of the developments in there. We got 2 consent judgments on the table, then we have Randazzo's has approached us to do something on their frontage. And since it's with the consent judgments and manufacturing zoning in the place, it's kind of a mixed bag on land uses. So this is what the best example I can think of. There are others that we found where we have small development sites where natural features, drainage patterns, whereby it makes the development of the site so difficult that developers want a higher density, and I can see that happening, that coming in front of us at some point. And most of these are in remnant parcels that were the large-scale developments bypassed, probably south of 22 Mile or something in there.
So if I understand this right, this would make more flexibility in-house for us to move forward on some of these oddball parcels and some of the areas that are hard to fit certain structures in. Okay.
Yeah, to give them a developer another option before they decide to turn to the court system.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Commissioners, anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield.
Go ahead, Mr. Tuckfield.
Just a brief comment on this. I think that the general idea of this, I'm much in agreement with. I recognize that there's a place and time and place for consent judgments, particularly the way we have our ordinance written in some of the difficult parcels. And I would much rather that it did not go to consent judgment. I think it takes a layer out of the process that's useful, having a resident's comments and also the understanding of how the process goes. So I like keeping it out of consent judgment where possible. The one concern that I would have on this is that sometimes it seems like these tools that we have to fix oddball situations end up being used in situations where they're not as effective. However, when we give an avenue to propose something, it's hard to unpropose it. The legal action may be different. Residents may be more concerned. So I guess my only comment on this, I liked it before. I liked it this time. I prefer to keep things out of consent judgment if possible. The only thing that I am slightly concerned about is that if we are too encouraging of this, we'll end up getting proposals that we will want to say no to, but we've asked people to come and give them to us. So I'm not sure how that gets balanced. That's probably best handled at Josh's end and Dave's end, and how they talk to people when they come in and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. But again, my concern with this would be that we're opening the door potentially to be asked things that we know we'll say no to. And once it's asked, it becomes a bigger potential for litigation than if we didn't have the door open in the first place. So that'll be my only concern, the only thing I wanted to mention at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tuckfield.
Say no.
Are there any other comments? Hearing none, I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:11. Ms. Ryan, do we have anybody that wants to speak tonight?
If any member of the public would like to speak, you can raise your hand digitally, and you can do that by pressing *9 on your phone if you called in, or you can use the Zoom app to do so. We have one person right now, Patrick Tuscany. Go ahead. Patrick? He is raising his hand, but it looks like he's on mute. There.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry about that. I just want to confirm I'm on the correct notice. I received correspondence on June 4th about this special hearing, and the Zoom meeting has changed. I had to, from what I had written on the paper, the webinar ID had changed. Talking about the rezoning behind my house for a gym, apparently.
No, sir, that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about changing an ordinance.
Okay, I'm at a public hearing notice for tonight for the site location on north of Quadrant Drive.
Let's meet her.
Yes, that is on the
Yeah,
agenda.
that's item D. That's on here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just ahead of, like I said, I got on this late because I had a different meeting web ID number than what you posted, so I had to find it online. So I'll wait till that section of the meeting comes up then.
Yeah. That's not part of the public hearing, but that is one of our agenda items tonight.
Will I be able to speak on that?
You sure will.
Okay, I'll be patient then, thank you.
Okay. Ryan, anyone else? Ryan?
Sorry, my mouse got stuck. It doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Nope.
Then at 7:13, I'm going to close the public hearing for the amendment to the zoning. Mr. Box, do we need to make a motion or anything?
Yes, for the public hearing.
Okay. The public hearing is closed. And now we need to make a motion for the amended ordinance, correct?
You made a motion to close the public hearing?
Oh, no, I guess, okay, I may have to make a motion. And I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Yep.
Mr.
Support?
Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield. I don't know if did anybody make the motion or I couldn't tell.
I don't think so. Do you want to make the motion, Mr. Tuckfield?
I'd be happy to make the motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing by Mr. Tuckfield, seconded by Mr. Shudo. Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Member Provenzano. Member Provenzano. I'm sorry. Member Provenzano.
Nunzio, unmute your mic.
Yes.
Great.
Sorry, guys.
Member Shuto.
Yes.
Member Oliver.
Yes.
Secretary Bentley, yes. Chairman Hardy
Yes.
and Vice Chair Tuckfield.
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes all the way.
All right. And a motion passes to close the public hearing. Do we need to do any more about the amendment for the zoning ordinance? Do we need to do a motion for that too, Mr. Bucks?
Correct. You can make a motion to make your recommendation towards the board.
Okay. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, Member Oliver.
Go ahead,
I
Mr.
move-
Oliver.
I move we go forward with the amendment on the zoning ordinance for conditional rezoning.
Do I have a second anywhere? Anybody?
I'll support that. This is Member Tuckfield.
Okay, motion by Mr. Oliver, supported by Mr. Tuckfield. Mr. Bentley, call the roll.
Member Shuto,
Yes.
Member Oliver,
Yes.
Secretary Bentley, yes. Chairman Hardy,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Tuckfield,
Yes.
Member Provenzano,
Yes.
And then
all ayes.
the motion passes. All right. New business B, special land use, RC1 Racing LLC. Permitted parcel 0836278-006, located on the west side of Gratiot Avenue, south of 21 Mile Road, 56330 Herb Drive. Mr. Knox.
Ready for me?
Ready?
Hey, Dave,
Yes.
it's Greg Icabelli. I just for the record, you know that's a typo. The address is 46330 Herb Drive. It is not 56330.
We'll modify that. Thank you.
Knox, are you ready? Or Mr. Van Tifflin?
Yep, Dave. I am going to do this. This is Dave again. RC1 Racing is proposing to occupy a building, part of a building in an M1 zoning district. It's considered a special use in that district because it has indoor recreation in terms of the people in there are going to have radio-controlled cars, and they're going to have races and items like that. There will be a small retail accessory use in there. We do not see any issues whatsoever. However, we cannot verify parking until the fire department issues an occupancy load, and they won't issue an occupancy load until they see the space built out. Just based on experience, I don't see this as being a major factor. There's plenty of parking there. Mr. Icabelli's here, he could probably explain better, but we foresee the major use of this as being after hours when people aren't working, weekends, possibly evenings, things like that. So our recommendation is to approve based on we verified parking.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Skirdo. Is the petitioner here?
Yes, this is Greg Icabelli.
Hold on. Please state your name and your address for us, please.
Greg Icabelli, 51435 Industrial Drive, Macomb, Michigan, 48042. And I represent the landlord, and Mike Himonek, I believe, is online as well, and he represents the tenant, which is the RC Racing.
Okay, Mike, if you're there, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, Mike Himonek, and the business address would be, do you want my current business address or the one that I'm trying to open?
Your current business address.
Okay, that would be 50126 Van Dyke Avenue, Shelby Township, 48317.
Okay, go ahead, gentlemen.
Dave, just to let you know, Ken Bartz has been out there, and he has issued a temporary CFO. The build out, everything's done. The building is ready to go. Obviously, he can't do anything till he gets the special land use, and we're not sure if, I think it still might be under the state order that he won't be able to open up until that is released anyways.
Okay, Greg, are you talking to the board right now? Who are you talking to?
Yeah, I think I hope I'm talking to the board.
Okay, because you said Dave, and I'm not sure who you're talking about. Mr. Skirdo?
Oh, Dave, yeah, Dave mentioned about the fire marshal, and I just wanted to let him know the fire marshal was
Okay.
already out there and issued a certificate of occupancy.
Okay, but if you could address your comments to the board, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just so to let you know, let the board know that the fire marshal has been out there and the parking has been addressed and a certificate of occupancy has been issued. As well as a temporary from the building department. We've got some landscaping to finish up out there. Once we get sod, we can get a final on the building. But I'll let Mike answer any questions as far as the business operation on that side.
Okay, Mike, you're up.
Is there any questions that the board has for me concerning this business?
I have a question, Mike. I see your address is Van Dyke and Shelby Township. Do you own the racetrack in Shelby Township, the old ABC?
I own a motorcycle dealership in Shelby Township called Magic Racing.
Okay, because I know there's an RC track in Shelby Township, the old ABC appliance. And
Yes,
are you going to be similar to the setup like that?
Yes, a similar setup to that, but the hobby shop is a lot smaller.
Okay.
The hobby shop is just going to contain the office part of the building, which is about, I think, 1,500 square feet.
Okay, this brings back childhood memories. A lot of you guys will remember this, but we used to have slack cars that were similar to RC race cars. How many tracks do you have in a building, and how many people do you think will be there for races? Are you going to have leagues and something like that, or races on weekends, or what's your business model?
So the basic, design, the temporary design right now is going to be open practice for 5 days, and then we'll have 2 what they call club races, and we're planning on Thursday evenings and Sunday afternoons, and you know, maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks we will have a little bit larger event, and that would be held on, you know, a week, you know, probably a Saturday or a Sunday. And then our peak hours, which the main thing is, you know, peak hours in this type of activity is usually when guys or parents get off of work. So like normally between 6 and 9 at night is when the load or the more load of people would be there, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That answers my question. And just to let you know, I've been to the RC racetrack in Shelby Township, and if he runs it anything like that, I think it'll be an asset to the community. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Shudo. Do we have any other comments or questions from our commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield.
Go ahead, Mr. Tuckfield.
I believe this would be directed to Mike, but a couple of questions just about the profile of the business. I noticed it's mentioned electric here a couple times, but do you anticipate being this 100% electric? Do you think this will be mixed to nitro at all, or what's your expectation in that regard?
There's no nitro. It's 100% electric. Nitro
100% electric.
Yeah,
it's significantly different. Yeah,
oh yeah,
it can be bad, but when
yeah,
you consider we have go-karts in the area with engines running inside, I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
No.
As far as your indoor tracks, do you anticipate the track being stationary or not stationary? Do you anticipate it staying in the same order, or do you expect that inside layout to change on a semi-regular basis?
Yeah, normally a change like that will occur anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
There will be a track layout change, and normally that's about 4 to 5 times in the season.
Okay. Along those lines, I noticed our review from Mr. Skirdo, our planner in this case, mentioned that you don't have any seating or bleachers area or necessarily a location set aside for spectators. How are you planning on anticipating for that?
So there's not, I mean, there is area if there's I don't know if you have the drawing in hand, but between, if you do, there's pit tables and then the track outline, the border, and then in between those pit tables and the track, there's going to be, it's about 10 feet deep, so 10 feet by 65 feet wide. People can view from right there. Okay. Generally, this sport doesn't bring a lot of spectators in. It's mostly the racers and maybe their moms or dads or whatever that bring the younger kids.
Okay. And then with regards to the hobby shop, are you expecting this to be a hobby shop only with regards to your cars? Is it going to be more general, or how do you anticipate that going?
I would consider it more of a race shop, so it's going to be very dedicated to what we do in the back. As far as it'll be all electric, 10 scale, off-road vehicles. So there's not going to be
Okay.
we're not going to be selling helicopters and planes and stuff, boats.
Okay.
It'll all be tied. I would consider it more of a race shop than a actual hobby shop.
So not if I can clarify just what I'm wondering. It's not going to be a generalized hobby shop with other RC sports stuff in there. It's very specifically for your use in this case.
Yes, I mean there might be at a time where Christmas comes along and there might be some,
Right.
but a model that's hot that we sell, but 99% of the time it's going to be very specific to what we do there.
Okay. And then the last question I had was and maybe I missed this, but what do you anticipate your hours to be?
Right now the hours our anticipated hours are going to be 12 to 8. Monday through Friday, except for Thursday evenings, and that's going to be a race day. And we hope to not go past the 11 o'clock hour. And then Sundays, we have Saturdays and Sundays. The time is going to be 10 to 5.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to control if you have more or less people. It might be earlier, it might be later.
No, and that's understood. It's harder to finish up at the end of the day when you got a lot of people in there and you're trying to close everything out. That's understood.
Correct. Yep.
Very good. That was everything I had, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Oliver has one quick question.
Go ahead, Mr. Oliver, and thank you, Mr. Tuckfield.
Yep. To the petitioner, how much staff are we going to have there at any given time?
Sorry, I was taking a drink of water. So my generally a business like on this runs at about normally about 3 people, at 3 to 4 at the max employees. There's usually normally 1 or 2 in the hobby shop and 1 race director on race days. So, I mean, my plans are to have 1 to 2 full time and 1 to 2 part time.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, I had one more question to the petitioner, Mike.
Yep.
I know this is maybe a little far-fetched, but do you have any plans to do any drone racing? Because I know that's a big sport that's coming up, and a lot of places are doing that now.
No drone, no.
Okay,
no flying, no anything. I'm dedicated to the off-road. So this kind of all racing, all off-road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Shudo. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Is there somebody else? Mr. Bentley.
Commissioner Bentley, I have some questions for Mike. Mike, this is all electric, as you've already stated, the vehicles. I'm not sure, I can only assume what the size of the batteries are and such. Are there any risks related to these vehicles collide, or as they're stored for any explosion or fire-related incidents with these types of batteries? Are they lithium-ion?
They are. So in collisions or crashes, there's never any damage. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Rarely can there be a battery that, I mean, we're talking like 0.00001% that a battery, if the user is charging at the wrong rate. But lithium batteries are required to be in a bag, a fireproof bag, as they're being charged. So if there was a leak or something, they're in a fireproof bag.
Thank you. Do you have charging stations then at each of the pit tables?
Each person brings in their own chargers, their own batteries, their own supplies.
But the power source for those would be at each pit table, correct?
Yes, the pit tables have their own power source, yes.
Okay. And are you in your retail area, are you providing storage of new batteries?
There will be, I mean, we will have some batteries on hand, but we're talking maybe like, you know, a half a dozen max in stock at a time.
All right, I appreciate that. As far as radio frequency, and I'm not sure. I used to do radio control a long time ago. There were issues with interference for adjacent facilities. Is there any need for this facility to have any kind of radio frequency shielding for so it doesn't interfere with operations in the adjacent facilities?
No, there's no, so back in the day, they used to use what they called crystals, and crystals you'd have to have a right frequency crystal. So everything now is bound to the receiver through telemetry, that's how you pronounce it. So there is no, it's all FDA compliant. There's no radio waves being sent all over the place.
Okay, I understand that. That's great. You have 7 32-foot pit tables. And during a race day, a competition against another club or what have you, do you anticipate certainly that there's one driver for each team? Is there such a thing as a pit crew? Do you have several people that will be working on, each of these vehicles in between, or
No, every driver is their own mechanic.
Okay, so I'm trying to get an idea of maximum occupancy. You talked about a viewer area for moms, dads, whatever, friends, and just to get an idea, because I know the fire marshal has to give you an occupancy load. I'm trying to get an idea of what you think is going to be a max occupancy beyond the racers themselves, for your Thursday evenings, your Saturdays, or your Sundays where there might be the biggest load.
You mean as racers and if there's a parent or two there for each child?
Yeah, complete occupancy, including any of the workers that would be there during a, I think you had mentioned maybe 6, but during a competition or what have you, your larger events.
I've done this a lot, and I've raced a lot, and normally on club races all over the country, from Michigan to Florida to California, normal club Thursday evenings and Sunday racing, I mean, if you got up into the 50 people amount, that would be like the major max, but normal, like a normal race day is 25 to 35 people.
Okay. All right. Is there well, I guess you've described the vehicles. Is there a barrier between the vehicle track and the drivers or the
yes,
viewing area?
Yes, we put a concrete cinder block wall for a barrier.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, this is no, I didn't cheat this out. So there's it's a 6-block high wall between the track and the pit area.
Oh, okay. All right. My concern there was what contains these vehicles. I don't know how big they are.
Yeah, 10 scale, so they're about a foot long.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's a 6-block wall. The wall between the pits and the track is 6 block high.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I believe that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. If there are no other questions for our petitioner, Ryan, I'd like to open this up to the public. Do we have anybody online?
Again, if you guys wish to speak, you can just raise your hand digitally. I can call on you. It doesn't look like anybody's raising their hand at the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to grant the special land use for RC1 Racing LLC, permanent parcel 0836278-006, located on the west side of Gratiot Avenue, south of 21 Mile Road, pursuant to the planning consultant's recommendation.
Thank you,
Support by
Mr. Shudo.
Tuckfield.
Thank you, Mr. Shudo. Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield, for the support. Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Member Oliver,
Yes.
Secretary Bentley, yes. Chairman Hardy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tuckfield,
Yes.
Member Provenzano,
Yes.
Member Shudo.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item on the list, special land use.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome, Greg. Thanks much.
Thank you, John.
Special land use kinder care. Permanent parcel 08224000023, located on the northwest corner of 22 Mile Road and Card Road. And then it's EIG 14T KCE Michigan Macomb LLC petitioners. Mr. Box or Mr. Skirdo.
This is Mr. Skirdo again.
Okay.
We looked at the kinder care facility in terms of special land use standards as well as site plan standards. We did start by acknowledging or recognizing that there have been variances issued already for the screening and for a setback. Is that correct? Okay, so that's already in place. So we didn't get into those at all because those have already been taken care of by the ZBA. We looked at location, size, character, the uses, traffic, and items like that. We didn't find anything that prohibits recommending approval for this development. We do have some details about the drop-off area that we want to defer to the engineer during the engineering review after a decision is made by the commission. I'm going through my report right now. There's parking was met, the no loading is required, access is fine. We again defer to the township engineer. They are going to put in an 8-foot concrete walk along the south and east lines per requirements of the township. In issue with traffic, we don't see any issues with traffic that are out of the ordinary of a medical office or anything else that could locate on this property, which is zoned 01. Lighting is fine. And at the end, going through all these standards, I believe I got 8 pages of standards, we recommend special land use approval and site plan approval based on the engineer looking at vehicular and pedestrian traffic and utilities to make sure. And bank parking was the other one I just told. Bank parking to make sure everything meets ordinance requirements when they go through engineering.
I believe the petitioner is on the line as well.
Yeah, I did.
If they wanted to.
Is the petitioner here? And
Yes.
Please state your name and your address for us, please, for the
Sure.
record.
This is John Shatarski with 814 Development, address 3221 West Big Beaver, Suite 111 in Troy, Michigan, 48084. I'm going to attempt here a screen share with just a short presentation of our project and see if I can get this to go through for us. All right.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield. Just briefly, John, if you could, I'm not on my computer, so I won't be able to see the screen share. If you could just make sure that you're describing it. I know we've looked at this at ZBA and Planning Commission, so I'm familiar. But if you could just make sure you're a little bit more verbal on describing it, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Tuckfield brings up a good point because many of our folks probably will not be able to see this either, our community. So
Okay,
good description as you go in would be great. Thank you, sir.
absolutely.
Okay.
So to describe generally the project, the northwest corner of 22 Mile and Card Road, we're proposing an 11,985 square foot kindercare childcare facility. It is currently zoned O1 office low rise with an accompanying playground of 10,037 square feet. The project history, some folks might not be familiar, but starting back in March of 2019, the Board of Trustees approved the rezoning from an agricultural use to an O1 office low-rise use. And then we had to seek some variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which we took care of back in December of 19, pertaining to section 10.0344 and relating to the perimeter fencing and screening that were required. So we were allowed, and the hardship there was based on the location of the consumer's easement along the north property line. They would not allow us to construct a continuous foundation in that easement, but they did approve the channeled pillar and pier with the hung panel type fence. So looking at the site plan, on the east half of the parcel, we have the facility itself with the main entrance on the south side of the building and the play areas due north of the building. All fenced in completely around the perimeter of the facility and the play areas. They are fenced in independent of the perimeter fencing on the property line. To the west of the building, we have 46 parking spaces in the lot. And to the west of that, we have the on-site above-ground detention basin, which is 60 feet wide from the west property line to the edge of the parking lot. Along the south side of the site plan and the east side, as was mentioned, we have an 8-foot wide proposed sidewalk that would connect from the intersection at Card Road and 22 Mile to the west, and then to the west property line and the north property line. To the northwest of the building, adjacent to the parking lot, is our trash enclosure. The outside of the play area, outside of where kids would be running around and be able to access that. One of the big changes that we've done since we talked last, on the north side of the play area, because we were not able to plant in the consumer's easement, we screened the north side of the play area with shrubs and trees, and have met all the other landscape requirements, the counts for trees, perennials, shrubs around the perimeter of the facility as well. On the southeast corner of the building, just off the intersection of 22 and Card, we have posed a 7-foot high backlit monument sign identifying the property. And in addition, there will be signage over the front door. Talking more about the parking, and it was mentioned earlier about the bank parking agreement. So the lot that we have proposed accounts for 46 parking spaces for the current use of the daycare. The recommendation that in talks with staff and the consultants was to enter into a bank parking agreement, which would, in the event the kindercare ceased to exist and it became an office use as zoned, we would add an additional amount of parking spaces that would meet the zoning ordinance for the O1 district. And that's shown on this sheet. We have a sheet SP4. It adds an additional 17 parking spaces plus the one required ADA additional parking space to meet the requirement of the ordinance. This sheet, I'm showing a couple of details. These are the details for our fencing, for our trash enclosure, which would be bricked to match the exterior of the building. It has an example monument sign detail. And then in the center of the sheet, it has the example of the hung panel type fence that we will be putting around the north and west perimeter of the property. Here we have the photometric plan showing the light fixtures that we're using. None of the light fixtures will exceed 15 feet in height to meet the the ordinance, and we will maintain the lighting onto the parcel to not throw light onto neighboring adjacent uses. And here we have, this is the example elevation of what our facility is going to look like. You can see on the front entrance, the addition of dormers on the roof, the cupola for some character to the front elevation, and then signage over the door. There'll be a 3-course of split block on the bottom with a ledge and brick for the remainder of the facade. And then just the rear and the other side elevation. So on the rear elevation, that's the center in the area with the slightly higher roof is where the gymnasium's located inside the facility. So there's some additional lighting, natural light coming in from the clear story windows. And then you see the screening all around all of our air conditioner condenser units outside the perimeter, so they won't be able to be reached by the children. And with that, I can open it up for any questions.
Questions for the board?
Mr. Chairman, to the petitioner, your panel fence, is that vinyl or is that cement panels?
The fence on the perimeter will be cement. It'll be a masonry hung panel.
Okay, and that will be continual. You're not going to have any foundation wall at all. It's just going to be the panel fence throughout the whole property, correct?
That's correct. And on the north and the west property lines, yes, that's correct, to separate from the residential uses.
Okay, one other question. Are you going to have any parking places like a 15-minute drop-off or anything like that? Because we did that on our, we had a daycare or a child care on 23 in Card, and I think the petitioner said he used to have like a 3 or 4 parking places reserved for drop-off only.
No, and to answer the question with the loading and unloading as well, to tie those together, we typically don't. KinderCare's policy is to have all parents park and bring their children in, and then when they come to pick them up, park and come in and get them as well. And they have the employees park to the far, in this case, it'll be the west side of the parking lot, the northwest corner, if possible. But we typically don't do loading and unloading zones.
Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Mr. Chudo. Does anyone else have any questions for the petitioner?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Oliver. I got a couple of questions for the petitioner.
Go ahead, Mr.
One is there going to be any audio, any kind of microphones outside where that disturb the neighbors?
Typically, no. They try to maintain to the minimum on the outside. The kids will be out running around playing. The teachers will be out there with them, but no audio system out there.
Okay. And then my second question is, I'm assuming this is not a requirement, but I was just curious, would there be ever a reason to have a standby power there in the event of all them children being there and the power went off? You know, how that can kind of get some days. Have you ever gave that any consideration?
Generally, no, we haven't. And we have not on this one.
Yeah. I mean, and the only reason why, when the power does go off, it tends to excite people in a worrisome way. And I understand it's not a requirement. I just was asking if there was any consideration. That's all.
No, and you know, the lighting is on, in that case, the lighting itself is on the emergency system. So if the power to cut out, you'll have the emergency lighting illuminating all those classrooms.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. No other
Thank
questions.
you, Mr. Oliver. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Bentley. I had several questions, and some of which will be worked out or should be worked out during the detailed reviews. However, they're general, and I need I need to state them just for consideration. The one I think you've resolved, the shielding fence that is perimeter to the equipment outside in the play areas. Are you saying that that is a solid fence as shown on the north elevation?
No, I brought back up, I don't know if you can see this. So we have the wrought iron style. So there's 2.5-inch max gap between the posts in that fencing.
Right.
That'll be that is what's going all the way around. That goes around the play areas. That goes around all of the condenser units. And then it's gated, locked gates for staff only.
Okay, so that was my concern. The 2.5 inches is just large enough for kids to reach in. And in the plans, it showed those gates that were very close to the edge of the equipment. Knowing that that's not a final design, I would ask that you consider larger spaces there to at least protect the children who are curious and reaching in for, or possibly even throwing things into that area. So I'm not sure what you've done in the past, but that could be an issue.
Well, if I could, one of the other options that we do on a lot of our developments are a vinyl coated chain link fence with slats. So that would, and so it would be a durable fencing, and then the slats would resolve that issue of spacing for kids to get their arms through.
Okay, I will leave that up to the engineering review. I didn't see any comments related to it, probably because it's too early. But I thought that should be made a consideration for your architect and engineers for further development.
I'll take note.
Next, I wanted to propose wanted you to confirm that the 6-foot hung wall that you're putting at the perimeter on the north and the west. There was two things I noticed that may or may not be an issue. One, if the existing wood fence is to remain as it states on the site plan, I believe there's a 3'6" space required between the new fence and the existing fence. And I believe that's in our ordinance, section 1427, that it just requires 3'6". Otherwise, it's double fencing, and I believe that's prohibited. And that might affect your layout a bit. It might also affect the easement. So that might be something you look at or verify that that's not an issue. And as it relates again to the easement for the gas line on that north perimeter, it would appear that the fence, the boundary fence on the north end of the detention pond, appears to be encroaching upon that easement. And I didn't know whether you've received any allowance for that from the gas company. I also noted that on that easement, you've restricted them with the west side of that northwest corner with no gate, and there may be a requirement for a gate there, depending on the requirements of the easement. So those three things related to that north perimeter and the easement, I would take into consideration as you further develop this.
Okay. I'll make note of that. To speak to the consumer's easement, though, we do have approval from consumers, and that fence, not the fence, the masonry wall will ride right along the easement line. And then to the point of the gate on the northwest corner, we have a couple ways of looking at it. They come in a 12-foot section, which would span from pillar to pillar, that entire easement. But we could have further discussions with them to see if they would prefer a gate there. And that would be accepted as part of the variance approval.
Right, and the only other, since your fence, your concrete hung fence appears to be on the property line, it is also showing to be hitting the existing electric and lighting poles on the north and on the west. I'm not sure if that's the way it'll work out, but according to your survey, it would appear that they coincide into the same location. Again, that is on the west end of your property and the northwest corner and the lower west side.
Okay, and that's something we can field verify as well for the exact placement of the utilities and the wall line.
Exactly, but I think your largest issue that needs to be resolved too is the retention of that existing wood fence and the separation requirement for no double fencing from the back lot of your adjacent property to the Card Road, or towards the Card Road.
Well, to address that, so that was discussed at the ZBA, and they granted the variance and the approval for us to place that. Ours being right on the property line, that wood fence is not on our property. So I don't know where we take that discussion.
Okay, if that existing wood fence is north of the property line, then it probably should be shown that way.
Understood. I will make note of that.
The last question I had is related to the ground sign, and I believe that is considered a ground sign. I looked at it. I'm not sure how you came up with the area requirements. When I first looked at it, it appeared to be over the area maximum. And with the modifications, I'm not sure how you applied those. So I would verify that your area is within the ordinance.
No, absolutely. And we use standard details for the site plan portion. We do have a sign company that we work with that investigates all the code and the ordinance requirements, and they design according to what's allowed.
Yeah, so what I figured is the area per one side was 45.9 square feet, which is over the 40 square feet maximum. But then it gets further reduced because you have more than one face, or more than two faces, it reduces it down another 8. But I'm not sure if it was increased again because of your setback or your frontage. So just take a look at that. We have sign companies all the time that don't quite look at the details there. You have a maximum, I think the ordinance says a maximum of 2 faces. You really have 3 with the address on that third face.
Understood. And yeah, we will take a look at that. I mean, we could always look at the scenario of taking the address off the sign and putting it on the building. It should be on the building as well. So that's a bit redundant, having it 30 feet away from each other.
All right, that's all I had, Mr. Chairman, just for their consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments for our petitioner?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield.
Go ahead, Mr. Tuckfield. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a couple questions to staff. One would be to Mr. Van Tiffelen. Mr. Skirdo's note said that he was deferring further comment to you regarding vehicular and pedestrian traffic and utilities. I noted that in your review, you did obviously note the utilities. I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on the vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
No, we're satisfied with what's shown on the site plans. We've been through a few iterations on this project, and we are recommending this particular configuration.
Okay. A question, and I suppose I should know this at this point, but I found myself trying to figure out the order on this, and I'm not sure. This might go to Mr. Skirdo, might go to Mr. Box. I don't know, but has the curb cut for this property already been approved? Is this something that's further down in the process? Just looking at the property, it seems like maybe a potentially challenging location to put a good curb cut in. I'm just curious, what are the odds that that would not get approved if it has not been approved already?
Mr. Tuckfield, this is Mr. Van Tiffelen. I believe that they've been in discussion with the county on that approach. They had the approach much closer to the intersection at Cart Road previously, and for obvious reasons, they wanted it as far away from the intersection as they could. So when I say that it's been through a few iterations, that's what I'm talking about. They've settled on this, and this gets us as far away from the intersection and the trouble that you get into. There's also center turn lane extension. There's a right turn lane going into the decel lane. All of that has been provided on the drawing. So, but
you're pretty confident that this is not going to change significantly because the county wants them to move it around from here.
I do not believe so. We're going to start the engineering review process right now with the approval of the site plan, and that will be with the township as well as the county. But engineering has looked at it from the township's perspective, and I believe they've been in contact with the county Department of Roads, and I think we're, other than maybe some minor tweaking with the utilities, I think this is probably a good configuration. We're all satisfied.
Very good. And thank you, Mr. Van Tiffelen. To the petitioner, John, thanks for coming in front of us. I know you've now been to this in front of these boards, both virtually and in person, a few times now. So good to see you back. I had to go check my minutes, and I forgot how many times you'd been to ZBA. We've seen you there a few times. I had a question with regards to landscape screening. I appreciate the additional screening you put on the north side of the property with regards to the play area there. I know there's some challenges around the DTE easement or consumer's easement rather. I did not see it on the drawing. I didn't have the drawing in front of me or open in front of me. I'm in a little bit too tight place for this big of a drawing, but I didn't see it in my review. Have you added any additional landscaping to the west side of that property as well? I believe one of our variances had to do with not having to put a landscape buffer in on the west side, if I recall correctly. But is there any additional landscaping on the west side?
No, there is not. And at one point, actually, on our plans, we did have vegetation in that detention basin. Everything west on the west 60 feet of the parcel is the detention basin, and then the 10-foot clear access drive. And we were directed to take all vegetation out of the detention basin.
Okay. I seem to remember there was some, and that was when I was looking at the drawing. I generally remember variance to site plan a little clearer, but I realized it's been 6 months because of a delightful pandemic that's kind of tied up operations a little bit. Okay, very good. That was all the questions I had for you. The only comments I have, this was to Mr. Skirdo and to Mr. Box. Mr. Skirdo, on page 4 of your review, table 2, density placement and height regulations. I just wanted to let you know that table is extremely, extremely helpful. I don't know, I've not seen a review from you, Mr. Box, yet. I don't know if this is something that you've done in the past or if you do, but I would just say something like this, it's really helpful to me. It helps me see what you've gone through. It does the comparisons of the requirements, and it's just extremely helpful. So I wanted to thank Mr. Skirdo. I wanted to encourage Mr. Box, if you can use something like this in the future, I think this would help all of us do our job and understand what you've got going a lot better. So just wanted to pass that along for the future. That was all I had.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, hearing no other comments or questions from the board. Ryan, do we have anybody from the public that would like to speak?
Yes, we do. Mary Pittman, go ahead. Mary Pittman. She has her hand raised. I think it's still muted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear
No
me now?
problem. Yep.
Okay, Mary Pittman, 49101 Card Road.
And Mary, just to let you know, you have a 4-minute time limit, so go ahead.
Okay, just one quick question here. While this is all being planned out, who is going to take care of this lot? The weeds are up past waist level now.
Okay, is that all, Mary?
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Ryan, anybody else? Ryan?
I'm sorry, I was on mute myself. No, there is nobody else.
Okay. Petitioner, do you want to talk about the citizens' concern?
Absolutely. Yeah, as we are now the owner of the parcel, we're not just under contract anymore. We will make sure that gets maintained, and I apologize for the oversight on that.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no other questions or concerns, we'll put a motion on the, anybody want to make a motion? Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Oliver.
Commissioner Oliver, I move that we move forward and allow the special land use for Care, permanent parcel number 082240003023, located on northwest corner of 22 Mile Road in Card, EIGHT KCE LLC petitioner, move for them.
Okay, motion by Mr. Oliver.
I'll support it.
Supported by Mr. Shudo. Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Secretary Bentley, yes. Chairman Hardy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tuckfield,
Yes.
Member Provenzano,
Yes.
Member Sciutto,
Yes.
Member Oliver.
Yes.
All ayes.
Motion passes. Next item, special land use.
Thank you,
Matrix.
Commissioners, for your time.
Pardon me?
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time this evening.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I might interrupt here, I think Mr. Oliver's motion was to approve the special land use. I think another motion needs to be taken up with regards to the site plan itself.
Okay. Anybody want to make the motion for the site plan?
Well, Mr. Chairman, can I add that to my motion, or do you want a separate motion?
You don't gotta make it separate.
Mr. Box, are we looking at a separate motion?
The motion's already been approved, so it will have to be a separate item.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Oliver.
So you're looking for a motion to approve the site plan on this parcel, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. I'll move to approve the site plan on parcel 0822400023. And that would be the site plan for the Care.
Motion by Mr. Oliver. Anybody want a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would, if I could, add that I would second it based upon the recommendations mentioned by the department, as well as those discussed at this meeting.
I would add that to my motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Oliver, seconded by Mr. Bentley. Everyone, if you're not speaking, please put your mics on mute. Okay, Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Okay, Chairman Hardy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tuckfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Provenzano,
Yes.
Commissioner Shudo,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Yes.
Secretary Bentley, yes.
Motion passes. Next item, under new business, special land use, Matrix Health and Fitness LLC. Permanent parcel 0818401-005, located on the north side of Leone Drive, north of Quadrant Drive. Christina Miller, petitioner. Mr. Skirdo?
Yes, thank you again, commissioners. This case is very similar to the RC1 racing. It's an reoccupancy of a building located in an M1 industrial zoning district. There's no exterior improvements approved at all. This is a special land use for interior renovations. The use itself, we termed it as an indoor training fitness center. And that was the closest we could come. It's a very, the petitioner can explain this, but it's a very specialized rehabilitation place that has their clients have weight considerations to take into account. So they need very specialized equipment to work with the patients. And so by doing that, their intensity or the amount of people they have in one room is going to be greatly reduced from what you normally think about a physical rehabilitation place. Again, with parking, we've done some parking calculations based on what the petitioner mentioned was the number of employees and number of patients per hour. And we feel there's going to be no issues with parking at all. And that's, I'm open to any questions.
Okay, is the petitioner here?
Yes, I am. This is Christina Miller.
And would you please again state your name and your address for the record?
This is Christina Miller. My current address is 53919 Atherton Street in New Baltimore.
Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to share with the board?
So I'm a licensed physical therapist. I specialize in working with individuals with neurologic conditions and primarily people with spinal cord injury. So a lot of my patients are actually wheelchair users, and the stand assist and walking assist equipment that I utilize requires higher ceilings and more open floor plans than traditional commercial buildings will allow. So that was the primary motivation for looking for light industrial space.
Okay. Anything else?
I provide a continuum of care. So while we lumped it under fitness, I try to provide services that my clients need that include post-physical therapy care that allows them access to equipment to continue a fitness regimen. So we heavily train them to carry that out after the fact. I do treat some orthopedic patients here and there, mostly after shoulder injury or sports related injury, but I currently am the only therapist employed by my company. I only plan on having 1 to 2 other therapists, and we do only one-on-one care. So we're looking at 1 provider to 1 patient at a time. So that would significantly limit the number of people in the building at one given time.
Okay. And Ms. Miller, this is all inside, correct? There's nothing, you don't do anything outside, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Petitioner, oh, no, I'm sorry, Commissioner, do you have any questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. As it relates to the facility itself, on the notice, it indicated that there were no interior modifications to be done on the application. My only concern was the toilet facilities and whether or not they have to be modified for barrier-free, as well as will they be sufficient for a total of 6 patients that you may have as per your or as per the information we received.
Given everything that's happened with COVID-19, growth is anticipated to be slow, but my plan is that if we do grow to the size that we're hoping, where we might get to a 3 therapist limit, we're actually probably looking at needing more space and another bathroom. The current bathroom, however, is wheelchair accessible. There is room for a full turn in the bathroom. There are currently grab bars. The only thing that we're looking to install are automatic hand dryers, automatic sink. Current sink is roll under. So we do meet the ADA requirements. We're just looking to make ease of use of the facility for our patients more conducive.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the board? Anyone else? All right, if not, I'm going to open it to the public. I know we had at least one person that was interested in speaking tonight. Ryan?
Yes, Mr. Tuscany, go ahead. He had his hand up.
Yeah.
Can you
hear me now?
There you are. Yep, I hear you.
Mr. Tuscany, can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, Patrick Tuscany, 15928 Mountainside.
Thank you.
I just have a question for the petitioner, actually 3, but that would be helpful. Is there any type of site map that can be put up like the previous? I am on lot 93, and I'm just trying to get a reference as to where this facility is that she's proposing is going to go.
So I apologize. I don't have site maps to put up on the screen, and I'm not familiar with where your lot is to specifically speak to. The group of buildings is located at the end of Quadrate Drive. There are, I believe, 5 light industrial buildings with individual units in that space, and we are one 2,800 square foot unit in that complex.
All right, well, I basically back up a Milano Drive. That would run straight into my house in 93, so it sounds like you're farther to what would be, I guess, the south of me. I just noticed that there's activity behind our house right now, and that the property, which I guess is Milano Industrial Complex, I've got a site map that well, there was a proposal for Unit 5. You're going into an existing unit, so that's not going to affect anything behind my property right now.
That's correct. We are an existing unit. I am familiar with Milano. That's actually west of us.
Okay, that's what I was gathering. So, all right, I have no other questions then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tuscany. Do I have a motion from the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield.
Go ahead, Mr. Tuckfield. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special land use for Matrix Health and Fitness LLC, located permanent parcel 0818401-005, pursuant to it meeting all of the requirements as stated by our department heads, and also based on the fact that I believe that it would be a harmonious use in this facility and bring good business into the township.
And I'll second that. Commissioner Bentley.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. Seconded by Mr. Bentley. Mr. Bentley, call the roll.
Okay. Vice Chair Tuckfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Provenzano.
Yes.
Commissioner Sciutto.
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver.
Yes.
Secretary Bentley, yes. And Chairman Hardy.
Yes. Okay, the motion passes. Under old business tonight, we have an extension of time, special land use, Sunny's, pools and more. Permanent parcel 0818-326-002, located on the west side of Industrial Drive, approximately 443 feet north of 23 Mile Road, Section 18. Kevin Zakarski, petitioner. Mr. Box or Mr. Skirdo.
Sure. So Sunny's Pools, as you just described, and I'm sure most of you remember from our last meeting and the meeting prior to that, actually, is a retail pool location selling, I think, largely pool supplies, as well as hot tubs and pools. They are looking for a special land use. They were before you guys at the last meeting, and it was they're being brought back to discuss a few items, in particular a firewall, a parking concern, as well as a gate at the parking area.
Okay, I believe they were supposed to have a site plan in. Is that correct? Has that been turned in?
No.
Yes, this is Kevin Zakarski.
No, Mr. Zakarski, hold on. You'll get your chance. Anybody from Mr. Skirdo or Mr. Box or Mr. Van Tifflin? Because I know that was one of the concerns we had and was part of our motion to have that site plan. Am I right, Mr. Tuckfield?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I thought I was. So, Mr. Skirdo, do we have a site plan from Sunny's Pool?
No, we have not received a dimension site plan. That was particularly to check the retail space. We're looking for a dimension floor plan was what we were looking for, and that has not been received as of yet.
Okay. All right. The petitioner, go ahead and share with us your thoughts, but I think one of the things that we asked last time we were together was that that site plan be turned over to township departments.
Yes, Kevin Zakarski here. I did get my site plan with all kinds of information to the building department.
Okay.
And with all kinds of detail and measurements that I gave to, I apologize, his name, Morales. The building department gentleman in charge, his name is, again, his name, sir?
I think you're referring to Mr. Maples, Joe Maples.
Yes,
yes. Commission, as we're sitting here, the building department did just, in fact, hand us this dimension site plan that the petitioner mentioned.
So Mr. Maples did a visit with one of the other building department gentlemen, walked through, reviewed, offered some suggestions, looked at the firewall that was built, and was going to, I guess, get back to you. He was very prompt in getting to me the day after this meeting. So I worked directly with him and getting him what I thought you folks wanted, and made sure everything else was taken care of according to a February 7th note, besides discussing the gate, which has been disconnected, but I still lock it at night right now, and he was going to discuss that in general, because it might be determined by the fire department that they might want it to have a key to open if they needed it.
Okay. Is Mr. Maples here, Ryan? Did he sign in at all?
No,
I did not
Mr.
see
Maples
him,
is not
no.
here. But
Okay. Mr. Van Tiffel,
No,
can you address some of the concerns?
we do have a building department.
I'm Mike Badamo, the assistant building official.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
I was with Mr. Maples on the walkthrough, and Mr. Maples was fine with what was done up until this point. He was satisfied with the firewall. The only issue that we're working on right now is either modifying some locations or putting in some additional exit signage that may be obscured by some of the storage that Mr. Zakarski has on the premises.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Mr. Skirdo or Mr. Box, I'm kind of looking for some direction here. Are we looking at doing an extension of time for those items or what?
So the planning items that we have reviewed, especially understanding that Mr. Maples is, okay with the firewall as it is, and we did in fact look up the language with regards to the gate, and it essentially reads that there shall not be a gate enclosing the parking unless Planning Commission approves. So you guys would have the authority to approve that gate there. Being that we've been out there a number of times, the gate's always open. It's only closed at nighttime. I think it's our opinion that this issue from a planning perspective is resolved, and we would be in support of approving it at this time and let the building department take it from here to get them across the finish line.
So we don't need to do an extension of time. We need to do a special land use approval. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, I'm sure you have some questions. So who's first?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Tuckfield.
Go ahead, Mr. Tuckfield.
I guess first a procedural question to Mr. Box. I know we spoke briefly about this earlier today. With regards to the gate, if we look at approving that, would it be appropriate to make a new motion approving the special land use, or to to modify the original motion with the conditions that were attached to it?
Was the original motion?
Yeah, so what the original motion was a temporary approval. So I think you'd have to modify that regardless.
So we're giving more or less would be if we were to grant an approval, it would be a permanent approval, and the original motion would theoretically have no bearing on it.
Correct.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, very good. And then just to follow up with Mr. Badamo, and I unknowingly, apparently, Mr. Maples was not in today, but I called him this morning. He was gracious enough to answer my phone. I think I disturbed him in probably a nicer location than I was, but be that as it may. One of the things that he mentioned to me that I just want to confirm with you, Mr. Badamo, and I think would be good for the rest of the board to hear, is that the wall in question did end up being a 1-hour fire separation wall. However, and again, please, could Mr. Badamo confirm that I have this correct, that the building is fully sprinkled, or fully fire suppression, I should say, which means that a 1-hour fire separation wall is sufficient, and also that it allays some of the other concerns that were given, and probably puts this into a little bit better of a situation.
Yes, we were able to confirm that on our visit on the 26th.
Okay, and again, and I think you stated this earlier, Mr. Maples was satisfied with the drawings that were given him with regards to the wall, the photos in lieu of an open wall inspection, and also what appeared to be the final product as it was installed.
Yes, once the visit took place with the sketch in hand, it all came together, and Mr. Maples was satisfied.
Okay, very good. Mr. Chairman, I think this concludes my concerns over the items on this particular issue. I will say that even given some of the circumstances, perhaps there were some things that could have been done smoother. But hopefully we've gotten to the other side and we can move on. And those were all of my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. Any other commissioners have comments or questions? Okay, I have one. Does the fire department need to be involved in this before we make a motion, or are we good with just the building department?
We could see, the building department can see this through the rest of the process.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you. All right, anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other motions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the special land use for Sunny's Pools and Spa. I do not have the permanent parcel number in front of me, but it would be the same permanent parcel that was on the previous motion to approve. And that would be not contingent on any items, but that they follow through it's not contingent on any other items. I would make it on its own.
Okay, and just for the record, permanent parcel 0818326 002. Do we have a second?
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Anybody like to second the motion?
I'll second it. Member Shudo.
Thank you, Mr. Shudo. Mr. Bentley, call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Member Provenzano.
Yes.
Member Shudo.
Yes.
Member Oliver.
Yes.
Member Bentley. Yes. Chairman Hardy.
Yes.
Vice Chair Tuckfield.
Yes.
All ayes.
All right, motion passes. Item number 8, public comments on non-agenda items. And with a reminder that you have a 4-minute limit. Ryan, is there anyone that would like to speak tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Moving on to commissioners' comments. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I have a few, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
First, I'd like to thank the board for approving of our PCs, which I think will help our planning department and our building department, engineering department. They won't have to print as many site plans, and I think that we've talked about this for a couple years, and I think this is something that, as a planning commissioner, it'll help us move things forward. Second, I have a question to Josh or Mr. Assorti. Who's going to rewrite our sign ordinance, and when do you think we can get a rough copy of that? Josh, I'll direct that to you first.
Sure. So I know we talked earlier, Mr. Shudo, about this. That is something that we will be working on in-house. I know you questioned whether it would be something that myself and or Dave would craft, or if Mr. Assorti would. I guess the short answer is really both of us will have our hands on it, I think, but largely me and Dave will craft that ordinance, and Mr. Assorti will then review it and give his comment on it when we get to that completion. As far as a timeline on that, I really don't have a good answer for that, of when that would be. Obviously, it's near the very top of our list, as well as the update to the master plan. So something that we will definitely be working on in the very near future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shudo. Anybody else? I would like to echo. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Tuckfield.
I'll just be brief, so that you can go on with yours. Just a couple things. The first one, I think we may have talked about it briefly at our last meeting, but I wanted to pass on some thanks to Mr. Box, and I don't know if Mr. Skirta was aided in it. All the department heads, Chairman Oliver, or I'm saying Chairman Oliver, Trustee Oliver rather, and the Board of Trustees for passing the temporary ability for restaurants to apply for seating, outdoor seating. I know that all of us probably heard about it during the process and interacted with it a little bit, but I was very heartened by the fact that a government agency, which we're all contributing in that, was able to move quickly and cut red tape to help restaurants. It's not always possible. There's some things we have to do, but I think it was possible in this case, and I really appreciate all the work that people put into it. It's perhaps a seemingly simple thing for most people, but I know there's a lot of moving cogs in that, and I was really heartened to see it go through. And already I know at least one restaurant near me at 21 and Card, El Charros, has put out their seating. I know there's additional restaurants who are interested in it. Hopefully it'll help, but just thank you to all the department heads and everyone who helped make that and put that together as quickly as it went together. I was really heartening to see, in times that are, well, we've been saying unprecedented, but they are unprecedented to shut down economies and then try to start them back up again. I'm glad we were able to do at least that little part to help. And along those lines, I know I've mentioned this to people in personal conversations, but please bring forward, to the audience, to the public, if there's other ideas of how we can help businesses. I don't know how many of them are doable, but this is certainly a time to put forth ideas and bring those things up, because if things can be done, they should be done. We have to protect our township, protect the residents in it, the businesses, the tax base, all of those things, and so it's pretty important. So that'll be the first thing that I would have. The second thing that I would have would be with regards to the master plan. I know that there was some conversation at the board level, board of trustees level, and I appreciate all the work. It sounds like Josh has been working on it. It sounds like Mr. Skirdo has already been working on it, and looks like he's got a little bit more assigned to that, so we know he can help with it. I guess just to piggyback on that for Mr. Box, is there any anticipated timeline on first steps that we would be involved with outside of just considering it as we've been done? Are there any kickoff events, or do you have an idea on how that might be scheduled, or a rough idea of timing on that?
As far as kickoff events, probably in the next 2 weeks or so, we're actually having an internal meeting with myself and Dave's company later this week to really hash out the schedule of events in terms of public interaction. And Dave, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, let me get background. This is Dave Skirdo. Yeah, we're already working on it. We're pulling together, we have a team pulling together background information. This week on Thursday, we will be working with my community engagement team to talk about dedicating a page on the township website devoted to progress on the master plan. And we're also talking ways to create community engagement through the use of Zoom meetings. We're looking at samples that's worked in our company, and we're trying to put together a schedule, and that would happen, panelists, and how that would operate and function. So we're moving ahead, and we'll be bringing the Planning Commission on a kickoff as soon as we get some of these details ironed out on schedule.
Sounds good and very good. One thing I'll mention that I've said in the past, and it's a little bit of a labor-intensive type task that I would be happy to help with if it's thought it might be useful, and that is to try to touch some of our neighborhood nerve centers, the homeowners associations, a little bit closer, understanding who they are. I know sometimes we have sort of ad hoc lists of who neighborhood associations are. Sometimes they're hard to keep track of. But I feel like that's a place where we can really interact with our residents at a very local, modular level and understand different areas concerned. So just one thing I would encourage, if possible, if there's a way we can try to interact and contact neighborhood associations, it might be a good way to really reach into the community. So hopefully that's something you can think about, or we can consider. And if I can help with that, if you think that's useful in any way, I'd be happy to do that and put some time talking to people, calling people, making lists, etc. So that would be the only thing I would note on that. And then the last thing, and I've wanted to talk about this a couple of months ago when it was fresh in my mind, but I'll just bring it up really briefly here. I've been doing a considerable amount more walking in the last few months, not having any time to commute back and forth to work. And one of the things that I've noticed as a whole, which is a relatively minor thing, but really affects how subdivisions flow, is sidewalk terminations at T joints in a subdivision. Seems like a minor thing, but it's amazing how many definitions we have of how to correctly connect sidewalks at a T-joint and how much it can disrupt or change the flow of pedestrians in a subdivision. There's one T-joint particularly in the subdivision south of the senior center at 23 and between Romeo Plank and Card, where you can be walking along a main street, another street tees into it, and you just dead end. You have to turn left or walk across grass to cross the street. And in my walks, I've collected about 10 different variations, relatively significantly different variations of how sidewalks can terminate. Again, it's a minor thing, but just something if commissioners can think about it and look at it, I'm hoping that it might be one of those things we can address on the micro level to make our townships maybe a little bit more walkable in the areas that are to be developed in the future. So just a comment with that, a thought of that, and that was all I had. And I appreciate your forbearance, Mr. Hardy, and letting me speak before you did.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. I would like to echo something that Mr. Tuckfield said earlier. The template that you're using, the Carlisle-Wortman template, I guess it is, for each one of our items, I find extremely valuable. I mean, it's laid out in such a way that it makes it very, I don't want to say easy, but it makes it a lot more understandable. So my compliments to you, Mr. Skirdo. And again, Mr. Box, if you're looking for a template, this would be a great one. Next item.
Noted.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
Macomb Township Board of Trustees Liaison. You're up, sir.
Well, I guess we talked quite a bit about it. Carlisle Wortman was awarded the contract to start our master plan, and it's obvious that they're into it already, and it's a good thing. I think that's going to help with the commission members adding on to that. I think it's going to get this finally going, and a new planning director, I think going to be happy to see what comes out of this. So again, I want to thank Carlisle Wortman for getting involved and bidding it. It only makes sense. They're here working, so congrats. Other than that, we covered a lot of stuff tonight, and that's good. Thank you.
You sure did. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. ZBA Liaison, Mr. Tuckfield, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no comments this evening.
Sounds good.
And you probably waited for me to say that for a long time.
Very long time. I'm kidding. Planning department items. Anybody from the planning department?
So I think you guys have touched on a lot of it. I just wanted to, let you know that the master plan is now getting underway. It was approved by the Board of Trustees last week. We do have the outdoor dining, temporary dining application out there. We have El Charro's already operating outdoors. We have the Hub Sports Bistro that's been tentatively approved. They still have to do one or two more items with the building department to get out there and start operating. And then we had been dealing a little bit with Kit Kat Club, and I think they didn't fully understand what all it entailed. And they thought maybe it was a little too complicated, so they decided they weren't interested. But Dave and myself went out there this afternoon and met with them personally and walked them through what it entailed. And I think they are now back on board, so they're going to be looking to submit in the near future as well. So if you know any other restaurants out there that have some feasible space to do this with, please let them know. And then the last thing is the laptops. I think Mr. Shudo brought that up. Our IT department has them. He's working on them, getting them ready for you guys. And hopefully you'll have them in the very near future.
All right. As we end the meeting, Ryan, I'd just like to thank you from the IT department. Great meeting, everyone. Motion for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Tuckfield.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. Seconded by
Mr. Shudo will
I'll
second
it.
Mr. Shudo. Seconded the motion to adjourn. Mr. Bentley, call the roll.
Okay. Member Shudo.
Yes.
Member Oliver.
Yes.
Secretary Bentley, yes. Chairman Hardy.
Yes.
Vice Chair Tuckfield.
Yes.
Member Provenzano.
Yes.
All right, you got it.
Motion passes. Meeting's adjourned. Once again, thank you, everyone.